Hello guys, welcome to my YouTube channel, BlunderKingOP. Today I'm gonna talk about opening a very famous opening known as Queen's Gambit. You must have seen the Queen's Gambit movie where Beth Harmon is the main protagonist. So it is one of the best and most popular opening among intermediate, like under 1500 elo, or let's say newbie, like 400, 500, or maybe 1000. Yeah, everyone wants to know about the Queen's Gambit because one of the big names, right? So we'll get deeper into the lines, like not only the engine lines, but also the ideas behind the Queen's Gambit. So the Queen's Gambit start with white playing d4, Queen's pawn opening, as you may know, and black has various kinds of move. The first is like straight up d5, which oppose the idea of like pushing d5 from the white side, or you can play any passive opening, like not to attack the center, but instead of playing something like knight f6, various ideas like kid or perk. Kid in the sense of King's Indian Defense, or perk, or nimzo Indian, uh, yeah, or nimzo Indian, various kinds of ideas. But here we are gonna talk about the standard Queen's opening, like d5. After d4, the black plays d5. Oh, my bad. Yeah, d5. Now here is the sacrifice, the gambit. Pawn to c4. What does it do? Why are we giving up the pawn? We are giving up the pawn because let's go to the basics of the chess. The first thing that every chess player knows is to capture the center, to occupy the center space, which is the squares of, mainly the squares of, even these squares is also included. Yeah, these six squares are known as the center of the board. Even you can also include in the long run this square. So this eight square is known as the final center of the board, as the Capablanca said. But yeah, once the pawn takes, this is known as the accepted version of Queen's Gambit, which is also known as the Queen's Gambit accepted. And then we have to play the more. There are two kinds of moves. First is either you can go e4, which directly opens the bishop, attacks the pawn. You will have a, as you can see the eval bar, it is plus 0.39 for the white right now. So let's go with this idea. What does this move do? First, we occupy the center. Second, we open up the bishop that attacks the pawn. So we will have our pawn back. Third, it also it restricts white to play something like this. Or if this, then we can take it. If he takes, we will take, and yeah. Though we don't have passing right, but it will be okay as queens is of the board. So what can black do here? Black has various kinds of moves. First, it can try to hold on this pawn, the pawn on c4, like not to be taken or something like that. For an example, he can play either this. This is also one of the lines of Queen's Gambit Accepted central variation. And after this move, we have to challenge it by playing a4. What does a4 do? That challenge this pawn, and now we have attack. If black doesn't play any good move after this, let's suppose black wants to hold this pawn. What can black do? Black will play this move. This holds this pawn, and this pawn holds this pawn. So yeah, here we can take the pawn, and the black will also take the pawn. So black has this, but black king is open a little bit. So we can go here and we can attack his pawn. Yeah, we are going to attack his b5 pawn, so that anyhow we have to take this pawn in Queen's Gambit Accepted variation. So we will play to attack this pawn. So if if Black tries to push it and attack the knight. This is the very wrong mistake. As you can see the evil bar dancing, because you will play a very strong move, which is knight b5. What does knight b5 do? Knight b5 attacks this pawn twice. Knight b5 also allows you to take this pawn, and this is an isolated pawn which you can take later. So yeah, knight b5 is one of the strong moves of black. It is very bad for the black. So black can't play this move. But black can hold this pawn again by this. Then you will have a good sacrifice here, a brilliant move, which is knight b5. What does knight b5 do? It takes a pawn. If black takes, obviously this is very bad for black, as he loses the rook on the spot, as simple as that. He loses the rook on the spot. But the evil ward is not dancing because black has this kind of moves. Black has more development and this and that. But still, you know that losing a rook in the early of the game for a knight is very bad, and it's not good exactly for the black. Under 1500 elo, it's very hard to defend. But yeah, this is one of the lines. Now let's go all the way back. Yeah, in the accepted variation. In the accepted variation, what if he plays something like he plays something like the black plays something like something like e5, attack the pawn. Obviously, you can't take because if you take, you will lose the right to castle on the spot. It is very bad for us. Though we will have same number of pawns still. So there are two kinds of move. You can either push the pawn, but this allows the black to play this move. So you should defend. You should always try to defend this pawn. Why? Because it either attacks this pawn and also defend our pawn on d4. Now if black captures, you capture back either from the queen or from the knight. You can also first capture this and then move on to capture this pawn because it is attacked twice. Even if the black defends it twice, it doesn't matter because you will have a good development. Your pieces are out, only one has to be developed. You can either develop it here or here. But see the black pieces. Three pieces are underdeveloped. And you have the center too. You have the open center. So it's very hard for black to win here. Let's continue with the different line, which is also known as the Queen's Gambit declined version. So here, as I showed you that there is an option for black to take the pawn, but now we will go into the Queen's Gambit declined version, where black has two kinds of decline. First is the Queen's Gambit decline version, normal one. The second is Slav Defense. In Slav Defense, the black plays instead of e6, the black plays c6 to defend this pawn. As we take, he take, and we both have we don't have this line. Neither the black has this pawn or white has this pawn, but both have this white and black center. So it is even game for both. It is drawish. It generally it is not drawish if you blunder a lot, either black or white. But yeah, this is a Slav defense. Great way to counter. So don't take, but just play like that. Wait for the blunder for the black. No, they will just simply develop the knight. You develop the knight. It's as simple as that. They if 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 ever he takes, just you push the pawn, you attack. The pawn is defended. You take the pawn. Your pawn is defended by the knight. So it's very good. The another thing you can do is simply after taking, you can do is ignore that pawn and just develop your bishop. This is another variation, but it is not used too much as you will see mostly you will play this move just to attack, and yeah, he can play this move too, or he can play this move again, the same lines, everything is same, almost everything is same, almost everything is same. So yeah, the same line is black tries to defend this pawn from b5. So now we're gonna move to another thing. What if black plays this straight up, take the pawn? If black takes, either if you want to trade the queen, the advantage is gone. It's a draw now. If you don't want to trade the queen, take with the knight, or you can push the pawn. This is one of the best moves. You can push the pawn. Now, if black takes, first take the queen. First take the queen. Or yeah, first take the queen. So it's just straight up lose the castling rights and all. But yeah, one thing you can do is here is a brilliant move, which is this one. Bishop takes. What if he takes? Straight up win the queen. What if he moves his queen? You take the pawn, which is it is a check. The king can't go here, can't go here. So it has to take with this pawn. And after that you have a strong check, which is queen to here. No, not strong check, but to defend this bishop. And queen is in the middle, so yeah, you will have a good position from here on. So this was the scenario of the Slav defense. Now we're gonna go with the normal Queen's Gambit decline version. Instead of playing, as I said earlier, instead of playing c6, what if Black plays e6, which is known as the normal Queen's Gambit decline version? You're gonna develop your piece. Normal development. This is almost every game. You have to play this knight here, the queen, the two pawns here, attack this pawn, fight for the center. In every kind of game of Queen's Gambit, you have to do this. The setup is going to be this. The setup is going to be this. So what if he plays like this? Just straight goes for the center kill. You wanna take this pawn first, and then after the pawn is taken, you will have a center. What if your pawn is attacked? You will defend the pawn. If it takes, you're gonna take back from the knight, obviously. What's the difference in this? Either you can take from the knight or you can even take from the queen, just to grab the center. Just to grab the center. See the development of the two pieces here. You can also play this to attack the center again. And you can argue here that black has more development or black has more, but it is not developed. There are three pieces which is not developed. Black has two pieces which is not developed, so there is a difference. Four minor pieces which is not developed or black. So Queen's Gambit is all about development of the pieces. So what if he plays this move? Just if you take, he takes, and which is good for black, almost drawish, but which is not, which is almost drawish, but yeah, it is plus 0.8, but it doesn't matter. It is a draw, almost draw. The GM don't go for this line. They play this move, but they don't go for this line, obviously, because almost it is almost draw every time. So here you can just develop your pieces. You will develop his pieces. You will develop your pieces. If he tries to do this, go back. If taking is fine. Why? Because it is kingside castle. So yeah, taking is fine because it's very hard for him. What if he takes from the queen? And suddenly his position is gone. So yeah, this is all about the queen's gambit. Now, how can black defend? There is a lot of ways to defend this queen's gambit tactics. But like I told you earlier, there is this center pawn trick where you can, go either d5 and play this move, or you can play this move, which is known as either slab or either queen's gambit declined version, or you can play even take this and play accepted variation, which I showed you. The other thing is the non-center variation, where if you play this, you're gonna go here, mainly kid or Nimzo Indian. These are two kinds of variations. For example, d4. Instead of playing, he can go here, and after this is known as the Nimzo Indian variation. So there is a lot of things. Even with d4, you have this. This is known as the Dutch. Yeah, this is known as the Dutch defense, where generally go play like this, and let's suppose any move like here, white goes here, black goes here. So this is known as Dutch defense. The position is always almost drawish, but the thing is, we are not Magnus Carlsen or anyone that we can't do blunder. Even we do blunder sometimes. So yeah, the Queen's Gambit is always good for white. So now we are going to end the video. Thanks for watching, and if you want some other openings to be discussed, just type in the comment, and yeah, I'm gonna make a video on that. So please like, subscribe, and thank you for watching. I appreciate it.